Welcome to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. In this episode, we're featuring local voter engagement in 2024 and beyond, a webinar that was co-presented by the American Booksellers for Free Expression and the League of Women Voters, designed to help independent bookstores mobilize and empower voters in their communities.
It's not just a matter of who's on the ballot, it's a matter of who is appointed by the people on the ballots. And I just want to say a few of the issues that are at stake in this year's elections, specifically ones that impact independent bookstores. First, the makeup of the FTC, which could impact the fate of its case against Amazon. Second, innumerable other appointments that set policies impacting small businesses on the federal, state, and local levels. And third, specifically the appointment of federal judges who decide the fate of cases like our literary freedom cases in Texas and Arkansas, which impact both the freedom to read and the bottom line of bookstores. Fourth, the fate of book ban legislation and anti-book ban legislation, which exploded in the last few legislative sessions and will only get worse next year, regardless, potentially, of what happens. We're going to see these bills introduced. And finally, if your school board members are elected on election day this year, the people who decide whether a book will be banned in your backyard, that could be a matter of who you vote for school board. So the American Booksellers Association and the League of Women Voters are both nonpartisan institutions. I'm not here to tell you who to vote for or to make endorsements, but I am here to ask you to do your research, mobilize the people in your community all the way down the ballot, and to think about two things when you decide who to vote for. One, the unprecedented book censorship crisis we're living through right now. And two, your own self-interest as a bookseller and part of a small business. The most important thing that can happen is that people who are part of bookstores and who love bookstores are mobilized and go to the polls. So the importance of this election is why I'm delighted that ABA has partnered with the League of Women Voters for our Get Out the Vote efforts, and I'm so happy to be able to introduce our speakers today. We're joined by Juliette Boberg, who is the Director of Corporate and Organizational Partnerships at League of Women Voters US, helping brands, nonprofits, and associations utilize the League of Women Voters' trusted resources and support to increase civic engagement. Prior to joining the League of Women Voters, she was Senior Director of Impactual, where she supported clients like Snapchat and Power the Polls in building impactful civic programming around election cycles. We're also joined by Megan Brown, who is the Vote 411 Senior Manager for the League of Women Voters. In this capacity, Megan manages vote411.org, including updating election information in all 50 states and DC, as well as helping hundreds of state and local leagues provide candidate information through the online voters guide, and spreading the word about the website to ensure that voters know where to find the election information they need come election day. And finally, we're joined by Catherine Weller, who is co-owner and new books buyer of Weller Bookworks in Salt Lake City, Utah. She began shelving used books at the bookstore formerly known as Sam Weller's Books in 1994 and has worked in the store since. She has served on the advisory council and the board of directors of the Mountains and Plains Independent Booksellers Association for one term as president. She also served on the Booksellers Advisory Council of the American Booksellers Association and on its governance review committee. Catherine is also a member of the League of Women Voters of Salt Lake and currently serves on the Utah League Board of Directors as Vice President of Program and Redistricting Liaison. She has served on the National League Bylaws Revision Committee and its nominating committee. Through the years, she has served the league as president and co-president of the League of Women Voters Utah, vice president of Local Leaves, and co-editor of the Utah Voter. And finally, we're joined by Ray Daniels, ABA's beloved Chief Communications Officer. Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh when I said beloved, Ray. It really is true. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Juliette.
Amazing. Ray, would you mind sharing the slides?
Sure thing.
All right, next slide. I think we can go through the introductions. Next slide, next slide. you can see our faces. All right, about the League of Women Voters. So the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan civic organization born out of the women's suffrage movement 104 years ago. We originated as an organization run by women for newly enfranchised women to help them register to vote and navigate their new civic responsibilities as voters. We acknowledge that the amendment of 1920 did not provide all women with full enfranchisement. And along with that, the League at the time did not begin as an inclusive organization for all women. But over the last century, League of Women Voters has transformed into what it is today. It is a grassroots organization committed to empowering voters and defending democracy with a DEI lens. We conduct voter registration, education, voter mobilization with GOTV programming through our amazing organizing team, and voter protection through voting rights litigation at the federal and states level with our incredible litigation team. Our focus is on voters who are most likely to be left out of the civic process. So we work with government agencies on being present at naturalization ceremonies to register voters. We work with Title I high schools, community and technical colleges, formerly or currently incarcerated individuals, and more. We do this work across the country through our tri-federated model. So I am calling in from the national office, but we have state leagues in all 50 states plus DC, and then we have over 750 local league chapters across the country in every congressional district that are volunteer-driven, volunteer-run, and are all working on voter-forward programming that's based on their specific community needs and what issues their community cares about. With the help of over 1 million members and supporters in the 2022 midterm election, the League reached over 27 million voters and protected over 17 million voters through legal action. Next slide, please. A little bit about our partnership, and thank you, Philomena, for the introduction at the top. We are so honored to be working with American Booksellers Association. My job as Director of Corporate and Organizational Partnerships is to expand our coalition. Democracy is people-powered, and so is the League, and we need help from folks like you who are trusted business owners in your own communities to engage more voters in order to increase civic participation and drive change. So our hope is that through this webinar and through the tools and resources that we're about to talk through with you, we can help your team at your local bookstore and our local leagues partner together in your communities to build civic programming. Next slide. A little bit on why this matters, and I think Philomena did a wonderful job of really honing in on this at the top of the call. But in 2023, 23 states enacted 53 expansive voting laws, while 17 enacted new restrictive voting laws, or 17 new restrictive voting laws were enacted in 14 states. These shifts have made it harder for voters to navigate the elections process and for civic organizations to assist people at the polls. There's also emerging trends that are making it harder to navigate the election system. There's the emergence of mis and disinformation, of AI, used by bad actors in election seasons, and also the banning of access to information, as Philomena mentioned. I also want to pull in some data that I was looking at earlier today from Circle, the research institution at Tufts. Data from Circle in 2022 showed that only about half of young voters were contacted by any kind of political campaign or nonprofit organization in the lead up to the midterm elections. But those who were reached were 29 points more likely to vote than those who weren't. About 1/3 of young people who didn't vote in 2022 reported that they didn't have enough information on their ballot or where to vote. And about 1 in 5 said they had trouble registering. So despite there being an increase in voter turnout over the past few cycles, which I know we all are aware of and have talked about, there's still a lot of work to do to build a fully participatory democracy. So we're eager to partner with ABA and all of you to make that happen. I will pass it on to you, Megan.
Thank you, Juliet, and thank you everyone for attending today to learn a little bit more about this partnership and the League and our work, especially through our votefor11.org website. So if you can go to the next slide. My role here today is to let you know about Vote for 11, because Juliet just said voters oftentimes don't know where to get the information that they need, where they can feel empowered to go and cast their ballot on election day. The League has our votefor11.org website, which is the League's voter education resource that has all of the information voters need in all 50 states and DC. It walks them through the process from registration to the candidate information to all the rules in their states around ID, eligibility requirements, early voting, polling place hours, if you're allowed time off to vote, disability voting. All of this information is found on votefor11.org and is available in both English and Spanish. So we have the information. It's a bilingual website so that voters are able to read the information and find the information that they need in the language that they feel most comfortable. Vote for 11 is also voter specific. So we do have voters enter their address so that we can show them exactly which races and candidates are going to appear on their ballot and exactly which polling locations they have, and where those locations are, where the early voting locations are, or if they live in a state that is vote by mail, where those drop boxes are. And really what makes Vote for 11 and the League's work unique is our candidate information. So you can see here, we've got the localized ballot information. This is where you are going to find all of the candidate information where leagues are asking candidates questions that are important to your communities. So like we said at the top, we have leagues all across the country in all 50 states and DCs. These are people who live in your community. They work in your community and they know the issues in your community. And so they are asking candidates the most important questions for your community. Those candidates then answer those questions in their own words. The League does not edit, we do not filter, we do not touch the candidate responses. Candidates are empowered to answer the questions how they see fit. And that's really key because how candidates answer the questions really matters. And it's going to show the voters who these candidates are and what they will be if they are elected into that elected office. We also cover down ballot races. So we will be covering from president all the way down ballot in all 50 states and DC so that you can find that localized information like the school boards. Some states have library board that is an elected official. There's lots of local and local candidates that are so important to all of our work and all of our lives in our communities. And we have that information for you. Again, it's address specific. It takes the guesswork out of it. Voters don't need to know which district they live in. We will show them the races and the candidates that appear on their specific ballot. So if you want to go to the next slide. So how can we work together as bookstores and the League? So Vote for 11, we have what's called a white label page. You'll see it at the bottom of the slide here. It's votefor11.org/ABA. It is a co-branded website that you all should be sharing and using to ensure that your customers have the information that they need through Vote for 11. But you can also offer other educational resources, even just having it, at your checkout, having the bookmarks that we're going to show on the next slide, we have Vote for 11 postcards, having information about election day is coming up, having those conversations. It's really important to ensure that we have this information for the customers because like Juliet said, one of the largest issues that voters face is they don't have enough information about voting, who's going to be on their ballot, when they're supposed to vote, all of those things. We're here to work together to make that easier for them. I did also want to touch on here, there are some what are called election holidays that are coming up, and these are ways that you can really tie in election day and election work with your work. These are national holidays that many groups and organizations and companies celebrate. So these are just nationwide days of action leading into election day. But every single state has different deadlines and election calendars. So really knowing kind of when registration deadlines are in your state for the November election, knowing when early voting starts in your state, knowing when absentee ballots are mailed, or if you live in a vote by mail state, when the ballots are mailed out, all of that information is on Vote for 1-1 and easy to find on state-specific pages, but really kind of working out a calendar around these national holidays, as well as the state-specific information that you could really use to talk to voters in your state. And so I'm going to hand it over on to the next slide to Ray, who's going to talk about some of the materials that they have developed for you all.
Hi, we have developed a voter guide, and I will put a link in the chat for our members. Oops. And we've created a bookmark and palm cards, and then some templates for a press kit, along with some materials to use on your social media programs to highlight the collaboration and to get your booksellers and members in community partners engaged and involved. And I am now going to pass it over to Catherine.
Thank you. And I am thrilled to be here as well. I can't tell you how exciting it was to me to see this partnership of two great national organizations that I use as touchstones in my life. So, as Juliet mentioned, there are more than 750 leagues throughout the country in all 50 states. So if there's not a local league in your area, there's going to be a state or a regional league with which you can connect. All you need to do is use the league locator called out on the screen, and I'm sure a link will drop into the chat. You put in your state name or zip code, and boom, there you are with the contact information. They want to hear from you. Trust me. Next slide, please. Oops, hey, there's your Find Your Local League slide. Fantastic. Thank you. Next slide. There are, as we're looking for that next slide, I'll just launch into this. There's a number of ways that bookstores can partner with the League of Women Voters. Some of the ways that Wellers has worked with leagues are we've connected with League in their events so that we contribute gift cards, say for gift baskets or auctions. We work with my local league, the Salt Lake League of Women Voters annual State of the Community Award Luncheon, and we provide gift certificates for those awards. At the same event, we also have a book sales table, which is something they asked me for. It was actually what drew me into the league so many years ago. And it's something to which the league members look forward every single year. They make a beeline for the book table. They look to see what the bookseller has brought. And during the years when my store didn't do that because I was in league leadership and I asked another indie store to do that, they were just as involved with that independent bookstore. They wanted to see what we were thinking, what we were choosing for books, and talk with us about books. Also, in 2017, Wellers and another Salt Lake City store, the King's English, collected signatures for a proposed redistricting ballot initiative. Ballot initiatives are heavy lifts in the states that allow them. So the involvement of bookstores can be really important here. It's a way that we can allow bookstores to really activate our membership. Getting training on ballot initiatives is something, but it is well worth doing. And of course, ask the league, those local leagues with whom you're connecting, what they need. What is it that they want in the help? Because there are many ways in which leagues are active. Specifically with Vote 411, and I apologize, I got out of order with the slides here. There are a few Vote 411, that voter platform that Megan called out as a terrific multifaceted tool because it gives information about ballots, which in a vote by mail state like ours is important. There are a lot of dates. And it gives those voter guides informations. So it's great to partner with the League on promoting the Vote 411 website. We have in many years used our social media accounts to help promote links to Vote 411, both for the voter's guide itself and for candidate information. You can work those into anything, newsletters, the collateral that the ABA has gone to the effort to produce for us that will allow your customers to easily access those codes. Put those out. We put up posters and flyers in election time pointing people to Vote 411 for a source to find that information about polling. Finally, there's one piece of Vote 411 that can be challenging for leagues. In a state like my state, Utah, where there is domination of a single party, and it varies from state to state who dominates, but the situation is frequently the same. Candidates aren't as motivated to respond to the questions that leagues put out. And leagues do a lot of work to get those questions formulated for communities to provide candidates the opportunity to reach out to voters, to give them the information they need to vote on elections for issues they are concerned about. There is now a link on the Vote 411 site that gives you as a bookstore owner and your customers the ability to reach out to candidates and say, hey, I've noticed you haven't responded to the questions on Vote 411. I use that as a valued piece of information in helping me decide who to vote for. Please respond to them. And I'll tell you, your local league, your state league, they will be thrilled with that. So please connect, communicate, take advantage of this. This is a powerful partnership. We've got a grassroots, nonpartisan political organization with a grassroots business organization, both invested in education. We can uplift ourselves and uplift the issues we care about the most. And with that, I'm going to pass this to Philomena.
Okay, everyone. So we are going to open it up to some questions. And how this could work is in the Q&A panel, which you should see at the bottom of your screen. You can enter a question, which will appear on our end, and then I'll be able to read that question and we can answer it. There have already been a couple of questions in the Q&A that I'll draw your attention to now to give the rest of you some time to enter more questions. First, it looks like for the vote411.org/ABA link, it looks like make sure that you're doing https://www. And that looks like the redirect is working then. And then there was another question about state leagues requesting Vote 411 bookmarks and distributing them among bookstores. We're figuring out exactly the best distribution method for the bookstores right now, or for the bookmarks right now. So I don't have a firm answer for you, but watch BTW for more information. And we should have some bookmarks at the fall shows. Is that right, Ray? Great. Yeah, one question from Mary. Will you please send a copy of the PowerPoint presentation to all of us? I think we should be able to do that, correct? Right, so yeah, we'll definitely do that. Thanks for that question. Sharon is asking, would we be able to print the bookmarks? I think that's another one that is a great idea that we'll write down and talk about and watch BTW. for the best sort of distribution method for those bookmarks?
If people wanted to, would they be able to just print from the design file that you all have on your site?
Yes.
Okay.
They could print from the assets. They could print the bookmark or the palm cards.
Great. So we have a question that just came in. Does anyone know if it's legal for bookstores to offer a reward, such as a free ARC or some prize for voters who show proof of voting? This is a great question. I'm not going to give any firm legal advice, but maybe League of Women Voters, Vote 411 friends, do you have any information on that kind of voter, like I voted sticker reward or anything like that?
Megan, do you want to answer? Should I?
If you want to take it, I can always fill in what I know.
Okay, I am not a lawyer. I want to say that explicitly. But I do know that some organizations have done sweepstakes and giveaways where the key to keeping it legal is making sure that it is inclusive of people who have not voted, or if it's around showing proof of registering to vote, you have to make sure that it's not required to vote or to register to vote or to take a civic action to participate. So, for instance, I know some people have done online voter registration sweepstakes with a giveaway, and you can register to vote, but you don't have to complete the action. You can also elect to volunteer for something or give money to something. So there has to be alternative options. But Megan, as another non-lawyer.
I was going to say, I need to preface this that I am also not a lawyer, nor am I giving any legal advice. But there was a comment in the Q&A that you cannot award for voting, and I believe that is the case. So you would not be able to give away, like on election day, if you're wearing your I voted sticker, like an ARC for a book or any rewards for voting. So it could be, in advance of election day, coming in, having conversations, taking one of our bookmarks, you can enter a sweepstake for a reward or something. So you cannot actually give a reward for voting. Most of the things that I have seen are always in advance of election day or even previous to the act of voting, again, to go around the rules for voting. So I think that if you think through it, maybe around those civic holidays that I talked about for Vote Early Day or NVRD, which is National Voter Registration Day, there could be sweepstakes or activities. Again, they can't complete the action, and you can't exclude people who are not going to be completing those actions as well. But it's something to think about.
Yeah, and I see some suggested language in the Q&A, recognition of your civic participation. Does that seem something that's encompassing enough? Again, without legal advice.
Yeah, again, without the legal advice, I would say always thinking through the make it before the act of voting. So the language that the league uses that resonates with voters and does help with turnout is making your voting plan. So there could be a process that you have in your bookstores that's like, make your voting plan, and if you can make the voting plan, you're entered into a sweepstakes to win the ARC, and it can just be a postcard that you have, and we have examples of postcards for making your voting plan. That is really easy activities, but yeah, it can't be it can't be dependent on the act of voting. Again, as my non-lawyer speaking.
Someone called out in the chat, Headcount is the organization I was thinking of. They do a lot of voter registration sweepstakes with giveaways, and that is the caveat that they use. So that's a great example.
And I will jump in that the head count thing, it says it for check your voter registration. That is a tool that we have on Vote for 11. So if you wanted to share your votefor11.org/ABA resource, on that page at the very top is a link to check your registration. So you could have something in your stores on a tablet or a computer or something where you have that page available for voters and they could click on it and then check their registration if they feel comfortable doing that. Just as something to think about using the Vote for 11 resource as well for that.
And there's another question in the chat. Does the league endorse any particular postcard effort?
So since I'm unmuted, I can take that as well. So it's not the folks that are speaking on this call, but at the national level, we do what are called GOTV or Get Out the Vote postcards. We focus them specifically in really target states for us and target communities. Again, like Juliet said, we really try to focus on the low propensity voters. So those that might be first time voters or young voters, people who are not known to go vote in every single election cycle. So we do postcards and we are tracking the success rates of postcards, but it's really just having those contacts. It's another touch point with voters, and every single touch point that we're doing, be it through postcards or social media or in person, is going to encourage people to actually turn out to vote and really keep it on their mind so that they're able to be like, oh, okay, it's October. Like, I should think about my voting plan. Am I going to vote early? Am I going to vote absentee, by mail, election day, all the things. Postcards are just another touch point that we can have for voters.
Another question in the chat. Is there any data on the efficacy of this I'm not sure exactly what the specific reference is here, but the efficacy of the sort of get out the vote efforts or anything like that?
I was assuming this one was around the postcards. I know that our team does. I do not. That's not my expertise. I'd be happy to share my email address with folks maybe after the presentation and people can reach out. And yeah, I know that we track data is really key to a lot of our work here because our goal is to ensure that every single voter turns out on election day. And so having the data of just how many people we contacted, if they've turned out and all of that is key. I just don't do it. So I don't have it off the top of my head.
Megan, can I just presume and say we're going to answer a question about the efficacy of Vote 411 as well? And I'll just kick you off by saying the last numbers I saw for my state, and we brought this in 2016, 2014, have steadily gone up every year. And your local leagues do get the amounts of hits, which Megan distributes, and then we all massage. But in my state, voters in every single county, and we are very spread out from north to south and from east to west, access Vote 411 to get voter information. And we are a low voter turnout state in a lot of ways. And so we have big numbers there. And nationally, the numbers are enormous, Megan.
Yeah, so Vote for 11, I do have those numbers. So we have millions of voters who come to Vote for 11 every single cycle. It does vary depending on the election cycle because people's interest in voting, unfortunately, also varies for election cycles. Although this is a presidential cycle, it is an unprecedented presidential cycle, and we expect very large turnout and very large number of users on Vote for 11. So we've got millions all across the country, all 50 states and DC. I will say in terms of knowing if those users, turn out to vote, Vote for 11, we have a privacy policy where we don't track users and the addresses that they put into the website. We want it to be private and so that they feel confident putting in their address so that they can see their personalized candidate and ballot information in polling places. So we don't track users. However, the registration tool that we use on Vote for 11 does provide a little bit of information, and we are able to determine if those voters or those people who registered through Vote for 1-1 turned out to vote. And every federal cycle that we've done the research, the voters who register through Vote for 1-1 turn out at a higher rate than the average voting population. And we attribute that to some of the work that the leagues are doing in the get out the vote capacity. The voters who register through Vote for 1-1 are also able to opt into communication from the League of Women Voters, and we send them messages encouraging them to go vote and kind of keeping that drumbeat. And so we do see that people who are interacting with Vote for 1-1 and with the league do turn out to vote at higher rates than normal population. So we would love to increase the number of people who come to Vote for 1-1. We do see it increase year after year after year. And so we're really excited to see what the numbers are through these types of partnerships and through you all working with us to help get the information out into the voters' hands so that they can make those informed decisions. So it's a really exciting year to be doing this work and being able to really know that we're out there helping voters feel like they can go and cast their ballot on or before Election Day.
We have another question in the chat. So I just joined the League of Women Voters in my area. Now what? What happens after you sign up? What's the best way to get involved? And yes, kudos to the person who just signed up for their league.
I want to give that to you, Catherine.
Yeah.
Many local leagues will reach out to people when they join. They'll send you a welcome letter. Somebody will contact you and let you know because, as I mentioned, the league is a grassroots organization, and I mean that in a very real sense, especially at the local league level. There are very large local leagues in very large cities that have staff. But for instance, in my state and my local league, we have one staff member. Each local league splits her time 20%. So we get 10 to 20 hours a week from a staff member. All other work is done by volunteers. Additionally, policy, what enables us to act, is determined by league members. We are the people who vote on and ascertain the policies, which we call positions. So it's vitally important to get involved with your local league, and they want to hear from you. If you do not get a welcome letter from your local league, feel free to pop over to their website or use that contact your local league button to just send them a little poke. Sometimes in the summer, especially, local leagues can be a bit slower moving. The legislatures are often out of session, and it's summertime, so things could be slower. Please, if you don't hear from them, give them a poke because they need your help.
I will just jump in there and also recommend that you find your local league's website and read about all the amazing work that they are doing and really think about your interests and where you could bring really your skills into the league, because like Catherine said, we are mostly a volunteer organization, and having a diverse group of people with diverse skill sets and really out there wanting to do the work. Like if you're really interested in registration, going to determine registration events and tabling at your farmers markets, or are you more interested in the social media side of things and sharing about the league and our work in elections through social media, or are you more on the Vote for 1-1 side doing the election information? We are doing so many different things. So really taking a look and then when you hear from your local league, say, hey, I know all the work you're doing. Here's where I feel like I could be an asset. They would welcome you with open arms. And there's so much democracy work to be doing that we need as much support as we can from people who are willing and have the drive and the desire to really help with this work. So thank you. That's a huge, first step, joining your local league. Second step is getting out there and volunteering with your local league.
If I can just add very quickly to that, I would also encourage you to think about how the league can support your business as a local bookstore owner. So if you host events, consider bringing in your local league, depending on what they're focused on in this moment, to host a civics education session, host a candidate forum, do voter education and registration tabling in your store, collaborate on palm cards that you hand out or materials that you hand out in the store. There's a lot that you can do outside of your store with the league, and also sort of within your space, engaging your customers as well. And thank you for joining your local league.
Okay, well, I don't see any more questions. So I just want to say again, Megan, Juliet, Catherine, thank you so much for joining Ray and I here. And you have some emails that you can follow up with if you have any additional questions. I'll also add abfi@bookweb.org, which is our free expression advocacy email address, if you have any other questions. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Booked, the Bookstore Education Podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA website at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!